Welcome back, guys. Here we are bringing you another webinar on one of our favorite topics. So I'm Dr. Maryellen Tedeschi. We have Dr. Molly Sears, Dr. Shreya Soni here with us as well. We are naturopathic doctors who are passionate about getting the conversation going about women's health and what we can do to improve it, especially at this time during a time of increased stress in our lives. So our presentation today, we're bringing you period problems resolved. Oops, there we go. So I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Molly so she can get us started.
Hi guys. Yeah, our topic is PMS, and this is a topic I think we're all three pretty excited about because we see a lot of it in our practice. So the womenshealth.gov defines PMS as a combination of symptoms that many women get about a week or two before their period. Most women, over 90%, say that they get some premenstrual symptoms, such as bloating, headaches, and moodiness. For some women, these symptoms may be so severe that they miss work or school, but many other women are not bothered by more mild symptoms. So the part that sticks out for me in that definition is 90%. That's 90% of women that are struggling every single month, sometimes for 2 weeks out of the month. So yeah, that's just not cool with us. And we really want to educate you guys on how you can kind of take control of that. In our world, we always say something, common does not equal normal. So like today, our periods get portrayed to us as being this negative event in our lives that we have to deal with every month. And it doesn't have to be that way. For example, tampon commercials or just chatting with friends, there's often a negative connotation around our menses. So we kind of want to address some things in our presentation today to help you guys take control of that and change the conversation around our cycles.
Absolutely.
So if we move on to the next slide, thanks. So there's types of PMS. You can break it down in a few ways. This way to break it down, there's 4 types, A, C, H, and D. So type A is our anxiety subtype. This is often caused by low progesterone. Type C is our craving subtype. So this can be caused by low androgens, which are known as like our male sex hormones. Type H is our hyperhydration subtype. So these are the people that will gain a lot of weight in the second half of their cycle. A lot of it's that water retention, bloating feeling. That's often caused by too many androgens. And then finally, the depressed subtype, which can be commonly caused by low estrogen, but those can, overlap quite a bit. So some other causes, so we kind of just went through sex hormone levels. Beyond just the level of sex hormones you have, we also want to consider the idea that the receptor activity could be altered for these hormones. Poor estrogen metabolism, which primarily happens in our liver and gut, and we're going to dive deeper into that later. Nutrient deficiencies, so commonly like calcium, magnesium, or B vitamins, can all play critical roles in this PMS picture. Insulin and cortisol issues, which we've discussed in our past 2 webinars, can also play critical roles. And then endocrine disrupting chemicals. So these are things that are found in, plastics, which is why you hear people talk about trying to eat out of glass or, the BPA-free water bottles, candles, perfumes. They're all just filled with basically these chemicals that are going to go and bind to primarily our estrogen receptors. And when we have something else binding to those receptors, it doesn't allow our natural estrogen to bind there and exhibit the effects that we want to see estrogen causing in our bodies.
Yeah. One of the biggest sources of endocrine disrupting chemicals too is makeup, beauty products, creams, lotions, anything you're putting on your skin, because they are really well absorbed through our skin, these endocrine disrupting chemicals. So this is something that we don't want in our body. So really doing the work of figuring out the ingredients that are in the products that you're using and starting to switch out for cleaner sources. It's always a great idea. The Environmental Working Group has a ton of great resources. I talk about this a lot with my patients, but they have the Think Dirty app. They have the Skin Deep system that you can go in and see where your products are falling on the scale and how you can start to think of better choices.
Yeah, and they make it really easy. Those apps that Dr. Maryllen's talking about, you can literally download them onto your phone. And when you're at the store, you can scan products. It's got like, I don't know technology very well, but it's got a scanner on it. And you scan the barcode of, say, like a shampoo, and it will tell you, you know, what ingredients in it are dangerous or could be causing you hormonal issues. And on that note, like some people, it's not good for anyone, but some people are a lot more sensitive to those than others. So, you know, it can sound like not a big problem to you, and it could be a huge problem to your friend or somebody else. So.
Yeah. And one of those things that plays in is fragrances. A lot of people will be sensitive to fragrances, and it's for a good reason. Fragrances, they're used, you know, to enhance sex appeal in some ways, and that of course is going to be endocrine disrupting if you're using artificial fragrances versus, say, natural aromatherapy or natural fragrances.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this slide, I'm not going to read all of those symptoms, but we're going to provide you with a resource on them later. But part of our job, I guess, when we are looking at your hormonal picture is we try to identify, you know, what got thrown off first. Was it more of an estrogen issue? Was it more of a progesterone issue? So generally estrogens kind of are like power hormone. It's dominant in the first half of our cycle. It makes, you know, feel confident. It can help with like skin health, hair health, all of that. It can help with libido. So some symptoms that your estrogen could be off would be things that have to do with those kind of topics. So you might see a decreased sex drive, dry skin, dry hair, dry nails. It also helps with like clear thinking. So you can see more brain fog if you have low estrogen. All of those kind of things. And then progesterone's our dominant hormone in our second half. And it's known as more of our like cool, calm, collected hormone. So when this is low or altered, we can see issues with like more of that premenstrual anxiety picture, difficulty sleeping, all of that. Do you guys want to touch on either of those?
I think it's really cool. I'm going to touch on the histamine that you starred on your slide. I'm glad you starred those because that's a cool connection I like to draw for people. I have seen a lot of women, especially in the menopausal years, they notice that their allergies might have gotten worse, or they're all of a sudden getting these strange hives coming up on their body, or there's these things that are not making sense. And when we take it back and look at how estrogen's being metabolized, the levels of estrogen, it can really give us that extra layer to see what's happening with histamine. And we know that histamine is, it's produced in our gut too. So once again, bringing back that extra layer that, yes, it's important to address our hormones, certainly, but we always have to think bigger picture and see, like Dr. Molly mentioned, you know, how are we detoxing and metabolizing those hormones through our liver, and of course our gut too.
Yeah, and I'm going to add, all of these hormones are really good. I know estrogen's been getting a lot of flack lately because things like estrogen dominance it has been associated with higher risk of cancers. But it's more the activity involved because of the xenoestrogen, so the artificial estrogens in your environment, than our natural estrogen. And also it's just about maintaining the balance of hormones. But it is important to intervene early. If you are having hormonal imbalance, unchecked, years down the road, it can contribute to long-term consequences.
Okay, and yeah, Dr. Shreya is going to get way more into testing, but this is kind of a good transition into it. We've all mentioned estrogen metabolism now, so something really cool, and we all use this test. It's called the Dutch test. This is a picture from it. This looks at, well, this test is the only way that you can actually look at the metabolites of your estrogen. And so we have basically 3 pathways in phase 1 detox in our liver. And so if you look at the 3 arrows, Maryellen, can you kind of circle them?
Yes.
So those, yeah, like, so yeah, those are our 3 pathways. That top one is our 16-OH pathway. That one's not really harmful, but it can result in a lot of PMS symptoms. It's basically going to tell things to grow. So it can, you know, give you a lot more breast tenderness. It can, you know, mess with heavier periods, fibroids, etc. So it can basically worsen things if you've already got some hormone imbalance. So we like to see a little bit of estrogen going down that pathway, but not too much.
Mm-hmm.
The second pathway is our bad pathway. This is the one that's more associated with that increased cancer risk with estrogenic cancers. It gets sent down something called the quinone pathway you see in that second line, and that can basically go and cause DNA damage, which we know isn't good, and we know that that can increase your risk of cancer. And then finally, we have our good pathway, which is our 2OH pathway. You can see it's all green. So we primarily want all of our estrogen, well, most of our estrogen going down that pathway. And we can go more in depth in that later, but that's the basics.
And this, spoiler alert, because we have a plan to do a talk like specifically on the Dutch method of testing our hormones. Because as you can see, when we start looking at metabolites of hormones, we are able to go into so much depth and uncover so many layers as to why you're experiencing the symptoms that you are. So this is a perfect segue into my section, which is testing, hormonal testing. So as naturopathic doctors, we are able to test hormones through 3 different mediums. So that means we can test them through serum, the blood, we can test through saliva, or we can test through urine. So my little slogan that I usually tell people is test, don't guess. And we can see that, you know, I say it a lot, we can't look at hormones in isolation. We need to get an appreciation for what else is happening, the bigger picture. And testing really does give us that extra layer, especially if we do feel that estrogens are a problem. For example, how our body's recycling them, how our body's using them. Getting that in-depth testing through the Dutch, for example, or another urine test I'm going to talk about too. We are able to see exactly which pathways need help, and then we're able to put in the supports that are specifically needed for you. So instead of a guessing game and kind of, constantly chasing what's going on, testing can really, really help guide the best treatment. So I'm going to start with serum testing. So this is kind of my wish list that if I had a patient in my office that was experiencing PMS, any of those subtypes that Dr. Molly mentioned, I would then, draft up a blood requisition if we chose to do a blood test of these tests. So I think I covered everything. I wasn't sure if Dr. Molly or Dr. Shreya had anything they wanted to add in here.
These are great. And like with testosterone, sometimes it's free and total.
Yes.
Same with some of the thyroid hormones. And depending on what you're presenting with, we might choose to get more detailed in some of the hormones.
Exactly. So the nice thing about blood work is it is standardized across healthcare professions too. And in my practice specifically, I know it might be different in the States, but it is the most cost effective in a lot of ways for us to test through the blood. So this is a nice standard option for patients. And we're able to not only look at hormones, but we're able to get an appreciation for inflammation or nutrient status. And we're able to kind of pick and choose based on your specific presentation what we want to look at.
Yeah, and these are so important. I think everyone should at some point have had some of their nutrients checked, especially women. Just knowing whether you're predisposed to be low in vitamin D, B12, or ferritin, which is iron, can make a huge difference in your lifestyle, how you're eating, how you're living.
Yes.
Something else to talk about with the blood testing. If you're having that conversation with your healthcare provider, make sure you ask them, like, what's the best day of my cycle to get these tested? Because, you're going to be giving blood. We don't want to have to redo it. And it can be annoying when someone has gotten these tests done, but it's on a day of the cycle that it's not very productive. So make sure you ask those questions to your healthcare providers.
Yeah, that's a great point to add. So then we move on to saliva testing. So saliva testing is one of these, it's a take-home kit that you can use. So you'll get it from your naturopathic doctor's office and then bring it home to complete the test. And we're able to test 5 different hormones through our saliva. So our cortisol, estradiol, which is one of our estrogens, progesterone, testosterone, and DHEAS. So the nice thing too about the salivary hormone testing that I do is that if we were curious about cortisol function, so even tying in to last week's talk about our adrenal glands, we're able to add on some more cortisol testing to a basic salivary hormone panel to see if we're getting that optimal cortisol curve or what's going on with your adrenal glands. So that's nice too, tying in the adrenal function. And the difference with a saliva test is we have to keep in mind that hormones are bound to proteins when they're in the blood. By testing through the saliva medium, we are getting an appreciation for the functional activity of the hormone at their target tissues. So they've passed through the blood, they've passed through the salivary gland, and then we're able to extrapolate and see what the functional level is and how those hormones are acting at their target tissues in the body.
Right. And for anyone who's not familiar, cortisol tells us about stress. DHEA is another type of testosterone type of hormone.
Yes, thank you. And of course, our urine hormone testing. So I have some show and tell for you guys. So we have the Dutch test that Dr. Molly talked about when she was going through the estrogens. So this is one way that we're able to test hormones. It's my favorite method of testing hormones in practice. If I could have one wish, I would wish that all of my patients with hormonal issues could do a Dutch test for me. One that just recently came out in Canada too, it's called the Comprehensive Hormonal Insights Test. So this is by Rocky Mountain Laboratories in Alberta. So they just came out with their own version of a urine hormone test similar to the Dutch. So it's nice I'm able to offer both of those options for my patients. So the nice thing about urine hormone testing, and Dr. Molly did a good job of introducing this, is that we're not only able to get the levels of the hormones themselves, but we're able to see those metabolites. And some of those specific metabolites, they can tell us a lot about PMDD, PCOS, thyroid issues, breast cancer risk, glucose and insulin signaling, insomnia, inflammation, insight into burnout. So once again, we're able to really check in on adrenal health. And the Dutch test as well, it takes a look at organic acids. So we're able to see melatonin levels, your glutathione, which is your master antioxidant, helps with detoxification. We can look at B6 and B12 levels too, vitamin C. So this is just a great, very comprehensive test that tells us a lot about your body. All right.
All right, so let's talk about some solutions to premenstrual syndrome. I'd like to start by saying that none of these are considered treatments. Please talk to your doctor about what is best for you. I'm just sharing what some of the research has been showing about premenstrual syndrome, and I'm actually very impressed. So we've been doing some of these interventions with patients for a long time, but in the last couple of years, there's been even more studies into some of the treatments that we've been recommending, especially related to vitamins and nutrients and lifestyle. So that's really a win for women's health.
Mm-hmm.
So just for a little bit about my background, I used to study biomedical engineering. And the reason I chose to do naturopathic medicine is because I saw what a drive the patent industry, what a drive there was for that, and how that influenced what research was done and what doctors ended up studying. And so for example, if you could patent an idea, like be it a pharmaceutical or something like a surgical intervention that you could patent, then there's a drive to do research on it because you can profit from that. And so as a result, things in your grocery store, the way you eat nutrients, there was no real incentive to research that because you can't patent those things. And in the last few years, we've seen a catch up. We've seen more people just investing and more philanthropic activity, putting out the research so that we can really see what is working for women. So I'm starting with your general lifestyle interventions. First thing is diet. So eating breakfast is associated with a lower incidence of pain during your period. So a lot of people are doing fasting these days, which can be great. But I will tell you the best way to do fasting is actually make the largest meal breakfast, because that's when your digestive fire. So in the morning time, it's the strongest. And by that, I mean, your response to insulin is also the best during the daytime. So it's actually flipped. I know conventionally in the United States, dinner is your biggest meal. It's actually breakfast that should be your largest meal, and it should be heavy in protein and fat to give you the fuel to both make hormones and be alert for the rest of the day. Other things that are helpful for your diet is consuming foods like fish, eggs, and fruit. Fruit has something called quercetin, and all of those have been found to cause less pain during periods. Something like alcohol, while it can be relaxing, it will tax your liver and contribute more to certain nutrient deficiencies like B vitamins, and I'll be talking more about that. And as we can expect, wine, so alcohol consumption, it is associated with more pain. So if you're having difficulty with hormone regulation, supporting your liver by reducing or cutting out alcohol intake is really important for women. So here is an exciting study published just in 2019. So vitamin D is one of those basic lifestyle nutrients. 50 to 90% of Americans are deficient at any given time of the year. This is your sunshine hormone. And again, it's really important to test that level because the dose of it makes such a huge difference. Vitamin D in some ways acts like a hormone into itself, and low levels of vitamin D, it is associated with intensifying symptoms of PMS. So everything Dr. Molly was talking about earlier with anxiety, depression, all those symptoms could be worsened if you're deficient in vitamin D. So another essential nutrient is B vitamins. So something like vitamin B6 is actually a first-line intervention for the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. So this is the first thing they do there, using vitamin B6 to treat symptoms of PMS. And vitamin B6 has a lot of studies to support it. It's an intervention that should be closely supervised by your doctor. If you're taking vitamin D, vitamin B6 just at a high dose and not checking in, it can cause nerve damage and nerve pain. So please be careful with your supplements, but know that, B vitamins can really help women's health. They can help your liver. Some other things to keep in mind is your lifestyle also plays into how likely you are to be low in something like B vitamins. For example, if you're vegan, it's extremely difficult to get B vitamins naturally through diet. And also if you're taking the birth control pill, you're more likely to be low in B vitamins. So those are some things to keep in mind for why someone might be low. A couple other things are if you have digestive issues like bloating and reflux, that's another key that you're probably going to be low in B vitamins, and that could be why you're having your PMS symptoms. And in general, I hope the message that's coming across here is that if you're having these symptoms, it's really important to deal with the cause. So medications are very useful in managing pain and the current symptoms, but at the same time, it's important to investigate why you're having the symptoms, listen to your body, and deal with why it's happening.
Yeah, I'll say something about B6. It's just kind of a tidbit, but you mentioned the side effect of the neurological side effect. That actually, they put the RDA, or the upper limit of B6 that you're supposed to take, they put it way lower than the dosage that people were getting any neurological symptoms from. So the safety profile is actually pretty great for B6. And a way you can further intensify the safety is take it in a B complex with a high dose of B6 on top of that. So you're not, only getting one of your B vitamins, because they do work, together. And so making sure you're taking B complex in addition to your high dose B6.
That's great. Another thing that's a very common nutrient deficiency in the United States is magnesium. The reason for this being that our soil is quite depleted in magnesium. Typically, you can get it through diet, and so you will see here dark chocolate being one of the things. I know a lot of women crave chocolate in the luteal, so getting closer to their period, the luteal phase of their cycle. And it makes sense because chocolate is a good source of magnesium. So magnesium has been studied, and there's a lot of evidence on it in reducing symptoms of PMS, as well as very obviously reducing pain, because it's your top mineral to reduce cramping and uterine cramping. Magnesium, it's fuel for the liver, it's fuel for every cell, it's fuel for detoxing. It's such a go-to in all kinds of interventions that it's important to check in and, you know, see if magnesium, you're exposed to enough of it. There are some ways to get it in your lifestyle, like an Epsom salt bath, for example, or topical magnesium on tight muscles. Those can be strategies to keep it in your lifestyle. And here I have a dosage from an article, but again, talk to your doctor about what dosage is right for you. So at high doses, magnesium, or unchecked high doses, magnesium can cause heart rhythm irregularities. So that is something, that's why you should be careful with it. And then there's such a variety of types of magnesium. It's going to depend on your body type, your even bowel movements, what type we recommend for you. There's magnesium bisglycinate, magnesium threonate, magnesium oxide, magnesium malate. So, you know, we would look at how your muscles are, how your bowel movements are. We'd look at all aspects, even how your memory, cognition is, all aspects of you in deciding which magnesium is right for you and what dose is right for you. Here is another very important essential nutrient that is, again, extremely low in the American diet and American lifestyle. And it's frankly hard to get just through diet. You'd have to eat almost 6 ounces of salmon every single day to get to this dosage, 2,000 milligrams of fish oil, that's been found effective. But if you're low in omega-3, and it's quite common that people are low, this is something essential. So it's really important to address. It could be causing all kinds of other symptoms in your body, throwing off your hormone production, and all this could just be why your hormones are off in the first place. It is essential. So the research showed that 2,000 milligrams, 2 grams of it, did reduce pain, and it reduced your neurological symptoms of PMS, like depression, nervousness, anxiety. This could be, you know, across the month that you're experiencing these symptoms, or even around your period. Both of those would be benefited. And it is possible to check your levels of omega-3 through blood. So it's another thing that it's nice to know about yourself once.
I wanted to add too, the importance of reminding ourselves the difference with omega-6s, because that's also a big reason why we don't get enough omega-3s in our body and through our food, is because it's a lot easier for us to get more omega-6s through things like even nuts and seeds, which even a lot of individuals who eat a plant-based diet, they're eating a lot of those types of foods, and omega-6s can actually be pro-inflammatory in the body, so they can cause more inflammation.
Yeah. And you'll notice in putting some of the food sources, I put some of the smaller fish down, like sardines and anchovies. And that's because people who eat tuna, I do notice that their mercury levels will be high. And so quality of food matters. And with seafood tending towards the smaller size fish, it's a nice way to make sure you're not exposing yourself to heavy metals.
Great point.
All right, plant medicine. We have so many tools available to us as naturopathic doctors. There are, you know, hundreds of herbs that we might consider in making a choice for you. The top herb that I know is used for the period, it's called Vitex. So it's a lot of people's favorite, and the reason being that it boosts progesterone, especially in the luteal phase of your cycle. So it is really helpful for bringing about your period. It's really helpful for women with PCOS. I've used it myself, and I love this herb. But again, it's not something that I would use all the time, every single day. There's specific cases for it. So it should be supervised by your doctor if you're going to be trying plant medicine. And there are studies to back up Vitex.
Awesome.
And a couple other interventions, evening primrose oil. So this is another source of healthy fatty acids. And so this is another type of oil to add in to boost progesterone levels naturally. So people with breast pain, breast tenderness, again, that's not normal. That's something we can treat, and it's a sign from your body to dig in deeper and treat the cause. Other things to consider, I've posted a lot these days about seed cycling, and that's just when you're boosting your intake of certain seeds in your diet. throughout the month. So seeds are a great source of nutrients. So if you'd like to learn more about that, you can check out my website or in some of our websites. So that would be dr-soni.com for directions on seed cycling. But the seeds that we might use, depending on how your period is, include flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, and sunflower seeds. And so these are good sources of zinc, good sources of vitamin E, good sources of selenium. So that's a way to get in these nutrients that can impact your period through your diet naturally. All right.
Awesome. Yeah. So much information, definitely a topic that we are so passionate about. So once again, here is how you guys can find us. These are the same slides that we've listed at the end of each of our presentations. I will make a note too, if you guys haven't grabbed our free Stress and Your Hormones ebook, it's available for free download on all of our websites, or you can, follow us and reach out to us and we'll happily share the link with you there, because it's definitely something that we want you guys to have so we can continue this conversation about the importance of women's health and really owning your health at this time.
Don't hesitate to reach out to us with your questions. We do use them to decide what our next webinars are.
Yes.
Yeah. And guys, I just showed on this last slide here, I have a free hormone guide and it goes through, what a normal period looks like, cycle length, period color, just some information on how you can start to educate yourself on what symptoms your body's showing and what it could mean. So you just go to my website, go under treatments, and right at the top, there's a link to download your free hormone guide.
That is awesome. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And here is all of our Instagrams, because we want you to join our community so that we can keep this conversation going and keep creating meaningful content for you guys.
Have a healthy, happy period, ladies.
Yes, happy, healthy period. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.